Welcome to Small Business Big Visibility. I'm super excited. We've got Mike Grabham here, and he has started 6 businesses, sold a couple of them. What's really cool about Mike is he's a math guy. So he has a full-on math degree. He's got an MBA, but he still speaks like a human. So you'd never guess. This guy's still human, like, right? Mike, how did that happen? How did you end up with a math degree, but still be able to speak humanish?
Yeah, yes, that is actually very, very good story. So I was in college. I played college basketball and I was at a school. It was a South Dakota Tech, which is an engineering college, right?
Okay.
They were just engineers, right? So it was School of Mines and Technology. So all engineers.
And playing
And
basketball.
I'm playing basketball.
Okay.
So I was there for 2 years, and I was in for my second and third year, and I just couldn't see myself being an engineer.
Mm.
Like all the people around me were just not my people. Like they just weren't my people, right? So I was like, I gotta switch this up. I gotta do something different. So I ended up transferring and going to a liberal arts college, and I settled on math because I had all this stuff in my first 2 years in engineering college. It's just math. It's just all analytics stuff. It's just
Yeah.
math and differential equations. It's just engineering stuff. So I had all this background, and I was always good in math as a kid. And so, by the time my fifth year arrived in school, I was like, I just got to get out of here. I mean, I just got to graduate. Like,
Right.
I redshirted my freshman year, so I played 4 years of basketball. I was on my fifth year. I had scholarship. I didn't have a scholarship the next year. I'm like, I just got to finish. I was one of my counselors. I was like, what? How do I get the heck out of here? He
Yeah.
goes, well, here's your choices. You can get a math degree. You can get an education degree and teach math. I was like, well, I don't want to do that. So I said, and it said you could get a physics degree. I'm like, I do not want to be a physics guy. So it turned out to be math. I got a math degree, and finally got out of school. But yeah, it's funny. I'm like I said, numbers are just they're so simple for me because I've done it my whole life. And the MBA just is because I wanted to learn more about business, like the business. And so
Mm.
I got an MBA, 20 some years ago. But yeah, I'm a numbers guy, but man, I love humans. Humans are the best thing ever.
Well, yeah, if you're at a liberal arts school and getting a math degree, that just speaks to that dualistic side of your brain, right?
Yeah, yeah, yeah. There was only like I'm gonna say 12 kids in that kind of crack, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's funny. There's actually another guy on the basketball team was also a math guy, and yeah, so it was interesting because we were weird. Like it's just weird. Like like you say, liberal arts college, you just don't normally see those kind of people running around the campus. So
Right,
yeah,
for sure. So after
yeah.
school, how did you get into this whole business world?
I had a painting business when I was 14. I was a
That's
t-shirt business when I was 16. My mom and dad were, owned small business. So I mean, I was destined to be an entrepreneur.
mm,
I didn't know it then, but the minute I was out of college, I was like, wow, I just want to get into the business world. So my very first job was a stockbroker,
wow.
which I was horrible. I was just the worst stockbroker. I just, for whatever reason, it just, I wasn't good at it because back then it was just really telesales. Really,
Hmm.
that's what it was. It was just telesales. So I just wasn't good at it. I did about a year and a half, I learned a lot about the market, which has served me well in my life because I understand how the market works, which has been great from an investment standpoint. But I was just a horrible stockbroker. There's just no another way around it. And so I got into business pretty soon after that. And I mean, you just never look back, right?
Hmm.
I've owned, like I said, 6 businesses, sold a couple, failed horribly, horribly bad once, just horribly, horribly bad, back in 2011. And yeah, it's my DNA. It's all I care about. It's all I do. I have a buddy of mine who's getting ready to retire, and he was over here this weekend. He's like, "So when you retire?" I'm like, "I'm never retiring. You kidding me? I'm never going to retire. Like, there's no such thing as retiring for me. I'm just not. It's not going to happen. Like,
Right, right.
just it's not going to happen. I'll work till I'm dead."
So which of the six was your favorite business?
Um, well, I'll answer that two ways. The easiest one was the first one, which was
Okay.
horrible because it taught me that business was easy and business is not easy.
Oh.
It was just easy for that one.
Oh, okay.
Uh, so that was really easy because a partner and I bought this kind of magazine that was failing, and we literally the first month said, okay, this is what we want to do. We kind of laid out a plan, and that plan worked perfectly. Like it literally everything we thought we were going to do, we did. We sold the company in three, like we said, hey, we'll do this, 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 this. We'll take some market share from this big competitor. They will probably buy us. If not, someone else will buy us in 3 to 4 years. And that's exactly what happened. Like
Wow.
literally. So as a 27-year-old kid, you're like, oh, business is so easy, la 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 la, right?
Right. Yeah, I
And
bet you're
ever
really
since then,
strutting the stuff back then. Like,
oh,
I'm the
totally
greatest.
right. Yeah, exactly. You thought you just knew everything, right? And then ever since then, they've been so hard, which is normal, right? I mean, normally they're pretty hard. So yeah. So I'd say my favorite, say my favorite was probably we had a software company that was back in the early 2000s, and we were one of the first, well, we were the first to create an app for the real estate vertical that allowed the real estate agent to access the MLS maps and all of the kind of pretty stuff
Hmm.
on a mobile device.
Oh, wow.
So we were we were about, I'm going to say, 9 months too early because the devices were so crappy back then. Like this was pre iPhone, obviously.
Hmm.
The Towards the end of that, the I don't know if you remember the Thera. It was called a Thera. It was a boxy kind of crappy smartphone, but it was at least the start of the concept, right?
Hmm.
So we were just a little too early. So we ended up selling that to a company in the real estate vertical. I don't know, about 4 or 5 years into it, just because we couldn't. The devices weren't ready,
Right.
and we were kind of running out of money, so we were kind of it was a kind of a forced sale, but
Hmm.
yeah, we did end up selling that to a. But it was super fun. We had an office in Vancouver. I was living in Seattle. My wife's from Vancouver. She was Canadian, so I loved it. We had great investors up there. We had a great, we had a small office in Seattle. We had a larger office in Vancouver, and we had both. We had customers in Canada, customers in the U.S. And it was fun. Like I said, really, it was great because it was a brand new product, never been done before. It was really cool technology, and we got to raise some money. We got to grow some, we grow some and sold lots of stuff, and yeah, that was a fun one.
Yeah, that sounds
It was
like it
fun.
would be quite the project.
Yeah, yeah, it was a lot of fun. It was a lot
So,
of fun.
which one do you think you learned the most from?
Well, probably the failure, right?
Sure.
I mean, the one you fail. Just I had a home services company. We did all the, and you'll like this because you're a handy guy. You know how to build stuff, right? So we did all the pretty stuff. We did the painting, the carpentry, and the tile work. All the stuff on the outside, right?
Sure.
And I had a company that did all three, so it was really kind of unique. And we did really well really quickly, and then crash in 2008, 2009 started to happen, and then we did okay for a while actually, but then by 2011 we couldn't sustain it. We had 45 employees, and we were it was a real thing, right? And so we just couldn't make it through it and ended up just kind of crashing and building and just die. I mean, I went through personal bankruptcy. It was pretty brutal for me. I mean, it was
Wow.
really brutal. Yeah, it was a dark spot. And like here's a for instance. So probably the last several months, last 3 or 4 months, I would get up in the morning like at 6 a.m. and go lay on the couch to get enough like brain power to go into the office. I just
Mm.
knew it was going to be so hard, right?
Yeah.
Like just so many just rough pieces and parts to the thing. So yeah, so it was a really rough time, but yeah, that's where you learn. Like that's where I learned so much about a lot about cash flow and the difference between profits and cash flow.
Mm.
And today that's really what serves me is how I help people. And so yeah, it was a pretty brutal time, but I learned a lot about firing people. I learned a lot about, I wasn't passionate about that business.
Hmm.
I liked the growing of the business, but I didn't really enjoy the business. Like I'm
Mm.
not a builder. That's not who I am. I don't like to build stuff. Like
Right.
it's not my thing. So yeah, it was just it wasn't what I yeah, it wasn't what I wanted to do. But yeah, I learned a lot from that. Like I said, a ton.
I
Stuff
so
that I wouldn't do again.
it's interesting to me though because if I understand correctly, you made it through the actual crash portion,
Oh yeah, absolutely made it through the
clear
crash.
until 11, because the crash was clear back '07 to
Eight,
8 was
yeah,
really where
yeah, yeah,
things were just melting. So
yeah.
like how does that work for you? Were you just fighting and clawing that for years then?
Yeah, so we did, like I said, we did really well, like a couple years prior to the crash, right? We did really, really well. Probably grew too fast, honestly, if I look back on it. But we had some good momentum. So the momentum carried us for a couple years. But looking back, hindsight's 2020, you you don't I didn't see some of the cracks in the armor.
Mm,
I didn't see some of them. Um, and if I would have had maybe a smarter money person, they probably would have caught it before I caught it.
hmm.
But yeah, so there were some cracks in the armor. So we were, like I said, we made it through the worst part,
Yeah.
but we started, we were so big that we needed some good momentum in them, and we just couldn't continue with that size of the momentum, right?
Hmm.
So yeah, it just couldn't continue that size.
Gotcha.
Yeah,
Wow.
yeah,
Interesting.
yeah.
Did you start your financial because of that crash? Like, was that the impetus, or what caused you to figure
No,
out
no,
this
it
whole
actually,
world of cash
yeah,
flow?
yeah. The whole cash flow thing came from just I became a full-time consultant in 2018. I
Okay.
just said my wife and I decided, hey, I'm gonna help other people. I'm not gonna necessarily do it on my own.
Hmm.
So I started that, and that's what really opened my eyes to that because all my clients that I'd had, and still to this day, they really either one didn't even understand cash flow, which is right, which was a kind of a surprise,
Hmm.
or two didn't even care about it, didn't even look at it, didn't even it wasn't even part of the world at all. And secondarily, they didn't ever like like watch profits like you would think. So I learned all this stuff, and it was all because it wasn't part of the system. It wasn't part of how they did it. That wasn't how they were taught. It wasn't how they managed the business. It wasn't because they didn't want to or didn't like to. It's just like it wasn't how they did it, right? This is how they did it, right?
Mm.
Because most of my clients had worked for someone else and started a business that was similar to who they worked for.
Okay.
So whatever the person who they're working for, whatever method they use, these guys used it.
Ah,
They didn't because they don't have any reference point, right?
sure. Right,
So,
right.
so yeah, so I learned all this in the last 6 7 years. Where man, this cash flow stuff is just it's just foreign to people like this.
Mm.
They don't get it. I'm sorry about that, dog. Um, but yeah, they just didn't understand that piece, and so I just really started to dumb it way down. Like calling it cash flow isn't probably the best thing. Most people just say they talk about cash, they talk about money, they don't talk about cash flow. I've learned that cash flow to many business owners seems accounting ish, like it's
Okay.
an accounting term versus a operational term.
Hmm.
When you say profits, they kind of equate profits to cash flow, although it's not the same thing, but many people don't understand that. But if you just say profits in cash or profits in money, that makes sense,
Hmm.
right? So I've learned how to communicate this language here, you know, that is really it's simple, but it's also just a kind of just a different naming culture. It's just saying the same things but using different words for it, and
Hmm.
which is really helps most business owners because they're not MBAs. They're most business owners are not MBAs. They're not finance people. They're most of them are operators where
Yep.
they've learned a skill or trade or something, and that's what they're really good at, right? Most of them are not great finance people, but they usually hire or find good bookkeepers or good accountants, right?
Yep. Totally.
So,
So what were you
so that's
doing
where
that
all that
led
came
to the
from.
finance world? Because you were talking about having these clients and they weren't necessarily savvy in this area. So what was it that led to that then?
I mean, what led to the understanding?
No, no, led to actually focusing in on this. You said that you had
Oh,
clients that weren't in that
yeah.
realm. So were you doing some sort of other consulting and coaching prior to
Well,
this?
I was just doing consulting when I would say just general consulting. Someone would hire me to help them fix something, right? Something was broken, or they wanted to. do something differently, or they were introducing a new product, or some of those things. It was just general consulting, right?
Yeah.
And then after doing that for about 4 or 5 years, the cash flow thing was like such a such a thing, because as you and I both know, when you're at somewhere between 250 and $2 million, $3 million, cash flow is everything. Like cash is everything. Like profits, who cares? Do I have cash in the bank? Really, it's
Mhm.
just everything. And so I understood this, but I also started to realize that that's how people did it. They just didn't have a system around it. They just like look at the bank account twice a day and like, this is what I have. So I'm
Yeah.
like, well, I mean, I understand how that could work, but there's better ways to do this. So that's where this thing came out. I'm like, well, crap, I should just be showing people how to really manage the cash. Like
Mm.
that's really all that matters in this business. I mean, in this size of a business, which is my sweet spot. I really enjoy that size of a company because they're learning how to grow. They're hopefully they've figured out a few things like their product works or their service really works. So yeah, so that's where I kind of came up with the concept of like just focus on cash, just forget everything else, focus on cash. I can show you how to do that. Simple systems, simple spreadsheet, like all that stuff's really simple. But it just instead of worrying about your profits, not that you don't have to look at them, you can look at them, but don't manage the company around your profits, manage your company around the cash,
Mhm.
right? And so that is the unique thing that I've kind of learned is interesting, and it's just way way better for the operator. It's because it's just so much simpler, honestly.
Mm.
Like if you just manage cash in and out, it's literally cash in and cash out. Just manage that
Uh-huh.
every day, and that's what I like. My system's like, hey, 5 minutes, see what you spent yesterday, see what you got in yesterday. Okay, that's what we know what we got. But the trick here is the forecast, and that's what no one ever does.
Oh,
Like
okay.
no, they don't ever forecast it out.
Hmm.
And it's easy to do after you've done, after you've gone through 12 weeks of doing it every day, it's super easy to map it out. Honestly, another 12 weeks and another 12 every 12 weeks. I always just like to stay 12 weeks ahead, right? And so if you do that, you're not going to have these like quote tax surprises or all these financial surprises that happen along the way. And
Right.
so that's really the secret sauce is this forecast. The cash flow is simple, it is unique, but the secret sauce is doing some kind of forecast,
Hmm.
right? Because
So
people just don't do that.
have you been able to take this in to any business owners and have them like come back and be like, "Holy cow, this is amazing," or like what's been the reception on this?
Yeah, it's funny because all my years before was just me managing stuff kind of generally. And then over just the last few years, I've kind of really started to kind of hone in on this concept of like, well, let's just worry about the cash. Let's, blah, blah, blah. So, yeah, so I've had some really interesting ones. Like I always like to tell this story because it really changed this person's life. I mean, and it wasn't rocket science, but it was life changing for them.
Hmm.
So this person owned a wine shop, actually a fairly small wine shop. And when I got referred to her, they had about $45,000 of debt, and she was hardly taking any money out of the business, and it was a struggle. Let's just say that.
Hmm.
So, but it was so easy to fix. Like it was a pricing problem, it was a cash flow problem because in the state of Washington, you have to pay for liquor, wine when it arrives. There is no 30 days, 10 days. You pay for it when it arrives. It's
Mm,
just by
gotcha.
law, right? By law. So she was doing this, but it was just a mess because mostly because of her pricing structure. So we basically changed pricing, how she priced it, and understanding her cost, like her full cost, which is really the key here, the full cost of what she sold for. So within 4 months, 3 or 4 months, I mean, it was already like you could see the path, like it was night and day. I was like, holy cow, this actually works, right? And
Oh wow.
within 9 months, it was a whole life changing. I mean, she within 9 months, she literally had like 30 some $1,000s of reserves, like cash reserves, which is what if you go for, right? She had
Hmm.
cash reserves. She was actually paying herself a certain amount every month. I mean, it was just like night and day. It just literally changed her life.
Wow.
But it was not, it was just somebody to say, are you doing this? How are you doing this?
Hmm.
Why don't you try this? Like it was just somebody asking the right questions, and then her just tracking it. Because as you know, if you don't track it, you don't know you don't manage it. If you're not managing it, you don't know what's happening with it. And that's what's happening in most companies cash. They don't manage it because they're not tracking it.
Mm,
They look at it, granted, probably every day,
sure.
but they're looking at a banking account. They're not looking at like what's come in and what's gone out. Like they're not looking at it in that way. So if they started doing that, and literally you can do it in 5 minutes a day, you start to see patterns. You can forecast. There's all these things you can see when you're starting to do that on a daily basis, which makes life dramatically easier from an operator standpoint. Right.
Gotcha. Yeah. Yeah, that's so cool that you've been able to actually implement it and have that drastic of a result.
Yeah.
And now you have the math degree, right? So numbers are your thing. Like that, you
Sure.
probably just think in numbers and dream in numbers. But what about people who are not the numbers people?
Yeah. Yeah.
How does this equate over to the people who aren't necessarily
That's
dreaming and thinking that way?
actually my in my kind of marketing stuff. I say it's for people who don't like numbers
Oh, okay.
because because it really is designed for I say the average business owner. What I ask them to do is look at your bank account every morning, first thing, put in the numbers of what you spent and what you received. Look at your credit card to see, because there's probably some things on a credit card. If you have one, grab those numbers and put those in the what you've spent. So that's all they do. Do that every day. And after even a month of doing that, you can look at that and I can kind of coach them through a bit of like what to look for. But once you've done it, even for a few weeks and a month, you're like, holy cow! Like I didn't know this, right? And like, yeah, that's why we do this, right? And Jason, the other trick to this is if they let's say they have two or three services. Service businesses are the easiest to fix, honestly. But
Hmm.
let's just say they have two or three services they deliver. If one of the first things I do is ask them to tell me what is the profit margin on that service. And when I say profit margin, I mean everything that costs to do that, including your rent, your insurance, everything. What's it cost to deliver that service? So many people don't understand how to do that math, but it's pretty simple. It's like, hey, I got $200 for this.
Hmm.
I got 100 customers, right? This month, I spent this much money. Therefore, it cost me X amount of dollars per customer.
Right. Right.
So once we know that profit margin per customer, then it really helps understand where we can gain more flow or less flow. Because sometimes when you look at that, they're like, holy cow, I thought I was making so much more money than that.
Mm,
Like per transaction, right? Like, oh, I thought I was making way more than that. Like, well, you really aren't with all you're making. So either you raise your prices, right? Or change the structure of expenses. Something has to change because there's not enough margin there to really deliver that product in the way you want to deliver it. And those are the aha moments for most business owners
mhm.
is when they see that kind of stuff. Then the other stuff is just it's kind of it's just easy. Yeah. So those are the tricks to the trade is understanding what your product or service actually costs, full cost, all in, and what you make off of that, right? And then tracking it, tracking inflow and outflow of cash. And if you do that, it's hard to lose. It really is hard to lose
Yeah.
if you're consistent. Now you can do it for a week and not do it. But that's not good. But if you're consistent at it, you'll probably win. Right.
Gotcha. And so you say service businesses are really easy. So in your mind though, when you're working with these service businesses, are you telling them they have to add this, or are they taking away a bunch of the things they used to be potentially struggling with or thinking about and be like, those aren't actually important numbers? How does that play into it?
Well, my main focus is like again, profit you make on each individual service and then the cash in and out.
Hmm.
So, not that you shouldn't look at your profit, you should look at your profit because it helps you understand what you did in the past, but cash flow is more real time, right? So, I just really try to focus on those things and not necessarily worry about the rest because, like I could worry about customer acquisition costs. Again, many people don't know that number, but it's a number that I want to know
Yeah.
because if it costs me $100 to acquire a customer I'm only charging $100, then I'm obviously not making money there, right? Because I've got all my expenses to deliver the service. So I like services because it's easier to adjust pricing, right?
Hmm.
And I've found leap I found by far the easiest way to improve cash is raise prices. And the thing that's most ignored is raising prices.
Oh,
Like
interesting.
you would be amazed if you ask 100 business owners when was the last time they raised their prices. You'd be amazed. Some people may say 2 or 3 years,
Hmm.
right? So it is. You think that everyone raises prices all once a year, which actually they should. At least something, right? Because your costs are going up. You can't buy a can of tuna today that was cheaper last year. It doesn't
Yep.
work that way. It just, I always go back to like we have two cats, and 2 years ago I was buying the little can of cat food for 79 cents. I'm buying it for 99 cents now. Nothing's changed. Same cat food, same cats, but it's cost me 20 cents more a can. Now, my costs, my living costs went up by whatever many cans of cat food I bought, right? So if
Mhm.
that was a business, if I was reselling that can of cat food, I would have to raise my prices.
Yeah.
I have to raise my prices because my cost of goods went up. So
Mhm.
so it's these kind of things that you ask business owners, and surprisingly that doesn't happen that much. It's
Mhm.
just it's not a cadence that is natural because many business owners feel like they can't raise their prices because they're going to lose customers.
Yeah. So how do you argue that point to them when they do say, I'm going to lose customers? I can't afford to raise prices.
Yeah. Well, I- I've only been in one situation where we actually lost customers that really were what you would say we lost customers.
Uh-huh.
Only one in all these companies I've worked with over the years. Um, it just doesn't happen. I mean, when you do it the right way, and it's not like you're going to raise prices 20%, although I've seen sometimes where it warranted that, but most of the times it's a 2 or 5 or 6% kind of increase, right?
Okay.
When you present those correctly, most people don't even bat an eye,
Hmm.
right? They just because going back to the tuna can, the cat food can example, we all experience them. Like you just said, yeah, I pay more for wood now than I did 2 years ago. Well, of course I do. It's not unusual. Like it's not something that you're like surprised that happens. So most customers, when you send the right message and communicate it correctly, that you're going to raise prices on January 1 or March 15th or whatever the day is,
Hmm.
it's fairly rare that you lose customers. And if you're going to lose customers, they're probably not your right customers. Not
Hmm.
for the because it is how you run your business. Like it's just how it works, right? So it's been a fairly rare occasion that anyone's lost any significant amount of customers on raising their prices. Um, Partly because you do it the right way, communicate it the right way, but partly because most people are not raising prices 50%. They're raising prices 5%, 8%, 10%, right?
Right,
So
right.
yeah, it's just how you do it, right?
Hmm. Now you're not an accountant, right?
Hmm. No.
Yes. So d does that make it easier to have these conversations because people don't have that perceived notion, or does it make it harder because they don't have that perceived notion about who you are?
I think well, it's easier for me because I don't like I always tell people I'm not a bookkeeper, I'm not an accountant. Granted, I've been around lots of them my entire life, but I'm not it's not my chosen trade.
Hmm.
I could communicate with bookkeepers and accountants clearly, easily. But that's not who I am. So I think it's easier because I don't talk like an accountant or bookkeeper, right?
Hmm.
And so I talk in operational terms, not finance terms. So and communication is everything to me, at least, and most people. That's how does he communicate to me?
Mm. Right.
And so I dumb it down, right? I don't talk financial terms or weird, you know, I don't talk about stuff like that. It's not important to the because I've like you, I've ran a business my entire life. I've been running a business, so I
Hmm.
I know firsthand what I cared about and what was important to me as a business owner. So um, yeah, I find it as a I don't know if it's a strength, but it's definitely not. It doesn't bother me. I don't think it's really hindered anything when I'm talking to people because I talk to them it's just a different level, right?
Yeah.
Right. I'm a business
Absolutely.
owner. I'm a fellow business owner, right?
Yeah. Yeah, so it's more of pulling from your experience rather than pulling from the textbooks, right?
Yeah. Because even having an MBA doesn't mean I'm pulling from textbook. Because I rarely do. It's you know, and if I was going to go back in time, I wouldn't get my MBA again.
Oh,
I wouldn't.
interesting.
No, I wouldn't do that again. I wouldn't. I mean, it was helpful, but I mean, I spent 50 grand on an MBA, right? So
Yeah.
it's not. I don't know. It's
And
worth.
that's
It's
not
not worth
50
50.
grand of today's dollars either, I'd
No,
imagine.
no, no, no. That's 20 years ago, right? So,
Yeah.
uh, yeah, 20 more than that, 25 years ago. Um, yeah, it's not something I would do. I wouldn't even recommend anyone doing it because I just think there's other ways to be educated. And if you're going to run, if you really want to be an operator
Hmm.
to operate businesses, man, there's lots of other ways you can learn more stuff probably quicker.
Yeah, so what are some of those ways that you see as the best ways going forward today to stay on top of your game?
I think the best ways is just work for somebody, right?
Hmm.
And I think work for several people. One of the things that I've again learned from my consulting work over the last several years is some of the people that I meet with and our clients, they've only had two jobs. The job they work for someone to learn the thing they're doing and themselves. That's the only two jobs they've ever had.
Oh,
So
interesting.
their points of reference are very small. Like you look at somebody like me who's seen all kinds of weird stuff, right? I've been in all kinds of different situations. So I have a lot of reference points, right? Like that's bad, that's really good. Like you can see things pretty quickly. Where when you only done been in two situations, like you just don't have the reference points. You just have a very small, narrow kind of level of experiences. So it's not that it makes you any smarter or dumber. It just makes you very like you're narrow. You don't have all these different inputs, and
Hmm.
that's what's really helpful in running a small business is having different inputs because as you know it's there's never a dull moment. It's managing chaos, it's herding cats, it's all those things, right?
Yeah.
So it's just never a dull moment. So yeah, I think that's the critical piece.
Yeah, I recently had a friend say that running a small business is the best personal development program you can ever buy, right?
Exactly. You learn, well, you have to learn about yourself. I think some of the best people owners I've met are people who really are they understand themselves really well. They're comfortable in their skin.
Mm,
When you hear that term, comfortable in their skin, I think the people that I think have done the best job are comfortable in their skin. They're okay with who they are. They know they may not be the smartest about this or smartest about that. They may be really smart about this, but they just they just are comfortable in their skin, and you could
yeah.
feel it when you talk to them. And so it's easy to be around that kind of person. Therefore, it's probably easy to work for that kind of a person. They could become very good leaders. I mean, all those things of just kind of knowing your strengths and weaknesses and knowing that you're not the best thing ever, right? So
Hmm.
some humility is nice.
Yeah. And I think that that skill of recognizing the limitations and then hiring for that and letting those people who have those other diversified experiences and expertise come in, that's what really builds a business is allowing for
Oh
that diversity of thought, right?
yeah, no question, right? Because if you think about it, if you and I had a business and you had your strengths, I had my strengths, and we hired no people to find our weaknesses, to support our weaknesses, bad things will happen at some point. I mean, I don't know how long it's going to take, but bad things will happen at some point because we haven't hired for what we really need. Like you say, that diversity of thought, diversity of experiences, just diversity of background. All those things are so, I think, just so helpful in a small business, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I've gotten to the point with some of my team members personally where they'll come and they'll say, "Hey, we've got this, and I was thinking this, and what do you think, Jason?" I'm like, "I think I trust you more than me, so you tell me what I
Exactly.
should be thinking here."
Yeah. In this situation, I think you're the smart guy in the room. I think I'm going to go with what you say.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I always say that. I'm like, I love when I hear that same thing. My response is, you know what? I think you're the smartest guy in the room, so I'm going to go with you.
Yeah.
Like, like I can't add any to that.
Yeah. And it's so freeing as a business owner to be able to let go and let other people have that skill set and let them lead and let them be in charge and let them make those decisions when they have the strength that you clearly have recognized that, yeah, they know what they're talking about. I don't need to try and control or own or be the person that makes every choice. Let those other
Yeah.
people shine, right?
Yeah. And I think that, and that also highlights the thing that I think is probably the most detrimental thing for the small business owner is thinking they have to make all the decisions.
Mm,
You know, that person who maybe works like it works in that way or plans and manages in that way. That's really tough because it's hard to keep really good people, you know, when you have to make all the decisions.
yeah,
Like, you know, it's really hard to keep good people because good people want to make decisions.
right.
And honestly, most of the time they're going to make good decisions if they're good people, right?
Sure. Now,
So
earlier you had said that you had 45 people on staff with the one company. Was that
yeah.
the largest staff number that you had dealt with?
No, the software company, the software company real estate we had, what do we have? We probably had about the same
Uh-huh.
at the peak. We probably had about the same at the peak.
Mm-hmm.
Probably around that same number, 40, 50 people. I've never been in a company ever. I've never worked for or been inside as an employee or even a consultant with more than 90 people.
Okay. So
All of them have been smaller than 90 people.
what's that like running and organizing a team of 45 versus, I don't know, solo or just a handful of
Oh, sure.
people? Yeah. What's that like? And how did you actually go and keep from experiencing mass chaos in both those companies when you scaled up to that level? Because that takes a lot of forethought and
Yeah.
organization to pull that off.
Yeah, the home services company that we did that we talked about that ended up failing so poorly. We had, like I said, 45, 47, 43, always sub 50, but always more than 30, 35. We had groups. So I had a group leader for each one, and I'm very good about, hey, this is your baby.
Hmm.
Tell me how I can support you. But end of the day, you're making decisions. Like this is your gig here.
Gotcha.
So I'm happy to help out and I'll listen, I'll watch, but and I'll let you know if it doesn't make sense to me, but you're making the call. Like
Hmm.
that's your deal. So um that has been my total how I operate everything I've ever done. Um, whether it's 6 people or 30 people or 60 people, whatever the number is. So, and I learned that again. I don't know where I learned that. I think I just learned that from just being around, people that were smart and, you know, said, this is how you should do it. I did take I think I took a management class when I was like 27, somewhere in there, 27, 28 years old. It
Hmm.
really, really set me up for success.
Yeah, okay.
Like seriously, like taught me how to manage people. Like, and it was like, like a week course, for
Uh-huh.
taught by a consultant. And it was, like 20 business owners in the room kind of thing. And, it's probably back then it was probably like, 5 grand or something, it was pricey, but man, it just totally taught me everything. Like really, and it also showed me my weaknesses and strengths really quickly too. Just
Oh,
at that point in my life, like intuitively things like you're just kind of good at this and not so good at this. And so that thing really, you talk about things that change your life. That was one of the things I think it really changed my business life was that management course, that 1 week management course.
so do you have any
Really,
nuggets from that you'd want to throw out to the
well,
audience?
part of it is what I just said, the fact that the having people that just let them do their deal. And
Uh-huh.
even if they're not really, maybe not 100% qualified, like maybe they're not, and they're not,
Hmm.
it's still, I would vote that it's probably better to give them more reign, like give them more leeway than less, and let them fail a couple times.
Mm.
Granted, you don't want them to make a huge failure, but if you know that you've got somebody that's on that edge, you're probably keeping a better eye on than another guy that or another person that's not doing or it doesn't need the oversight. But I always like let them have more. more leeway to figure it out, right? And most of the time, when you challenge the person like that, they they succeed. They put more effort into it. They put more passion into it. They put more thought into it, just because they know that it's their deal. And so that's what I think I learned in that sports, and then utilized that the rest of my life. It's just, and sometimes it's bit me in the butt, no question, right? No
Hmm.
question. But most of the time it hasn't, right? Most of the time it's been better to let somebody, because also what happens if they mess up a little bit, they fix it, but they start to learn and they become so much better, so much quicker, right? They start to like, and you can just see it, like, holy crap, man, like that person's just so much better than they were 6 months ago. And it's just because you're kind of giving them the ability to screw things up,
Right.
and it's okay to mess up. That's all right. Like, that's okay. Like, we can fix it. Like, most things are easily fixed. That's what we do
Mhm.
in businesses. We just fix things that break. That's what literally your job is. So, yeah, I think that's the biggest thing for me, is just giving people leeway and letting them fail, and it's okay to fail. And you don't want to see stupid failures, but and you don't want to see the same failure happen twice or three times, but failing's good, you know. That's good. You learn stuff quickly. And as a small business owner, there's lots of things that no one knows.
Right.
Like, you just don't know. Even as the owner, you don't know. You're not sure what's going to happen either. So it's like you can't necessarily predict it. I mean, you can say you do and say you're super smart, but at the end of the day, you're still guessing too, right?
Yep. Yep. And
Yeah.
same's true for big business. They don't have a clue. They don't know.
No, they don't have a clue either. No, no question, no question. I mean, there's just bigger numbers, right? But
Exactly.
yeah, you got to have, you just got to know that you don't know. Like, and I think that's part of it too. Like, do I really know that? I have a feeling, but I don't know. Like, and it's funny. I always, here's one of my things with my clients. I think get tired of hearing this. Like I always say, like the first month or 2 or 3 months, I'm like, I'm really stupid still. I don't know what you know. Like,
Mhm.
I'm not even remotely close to where you are. Like, I'm dumb. Like, give me some time, I'll get smarter. But I'm a dummy right now, so don't, that's don't expect me to come up with some great conclusion, because you're like 50 times smarter than I am, because this is your business. I'm an outsider. I've looked at the numbers. I've done some stuff. I've talked to a lot of people, but you're still the smart guy in the room.
Yeah.
Like, he or she is still the person. So yeah, so I was like, hey, I'm a dummy. Give me 6 months. I'll be a lot smarter, but I'm a dummy right now. So
Hmm.
it's important to realize that you just don't know things.
Yep, I completely agree. And with that, being willing to accept the other people coming in. Like you saying, "Hey, I've discovered this financial thing. Let me come in and teach you what I'm smart at." I
Yeah,
granted, like you as the business owner, you're really good at your thing. Let me come share my knowledge. You're going to get better at what I know, and then you're going to be
yeah,
twice as good at what you do because
absolutely.
you absorbed from me what I could share, right?
Yeah. And it's like, well, I think one of the things I've also learned is how little how little time, or how little of a shift it takes to do this kind of stuff that I'm talking about. Like, it's not like a major change in anyone's life. It's honestly pretty small things,
Hmm.
but they make a huge difference. But it's not like, and I've had that feedback from people, like, I thought it was going to be so much harder, because they think it's all, like, oh yeah, you're gonna have to make me do all this fun stuff. I'm like, no, it's not. It's just do these things. It's all you got to do.
Right,
So
right.
so I've, like, people are like, oh, Mike, I just thought it was gonna be so much harder. Not that it wasn't hard, but it's like, it's simple,
Yeah.
right? It's simple, and the results still get there. But people don't, they think when you're first starting out, oh, you're gonna have to jump up and down, stand on your head, and do all these weird things. And you're not change. I tell people, if you give me 5 minutes a day for 12 straight weeks, I can change how you run your business. 5 minutes a day. Just give me 5 minutes.
Wow, that's a powerful call to action. So,
Yeah,
audience, how many of you want to give him 5 minutes for 12 weeks,
yeah,
right?
yeah, yeah. Give me 5 minutes. Seriously, I'll give you 5 minutes. If you just give me 5 minutes every single day, I can change how you run your business. Because that's all it really takes. Once, I can't, granted, the first week or two, maybe not 5 minutes, but after the first couple of weeks, it's really 5 minutes a day, and maybe another 10 minutes to look at some things. Right.
Nice.
So
So, if somebody does want to jump in and be like, hey, how do I do this? Like, where do they go? How do they find out more? Do they call you? Do they email you? What's
Sure.
the way to find Mike?
Yeah, there's a couple easy ways. You can just go to my website, which is pretty easy, just michaelgrabham.com, which is Michael, and Grabham is Grabham. So it looks like Grabham, michaelgrabham.com. So that's my website. I had that for years. So you can learn a lot there. I've got free guides and all kinds of kind of cool stuff. And I'm busy, busy, busy on LinkedIn. So I'm on LinkedIn a lot, sharing things and helping people. So you just type in Mike Grabham. There's only a couple Mike Grabs in the U.S., so that's pretty easy to find. But yeah, those are the easy way to get me. But you can email me, Mike at michaelgrabham.com. I'll answer. Call me on the phone. Call me on my cell 206-354. Call me anytime. I don't care. It's fine.
There we go. Huh?
I'm open
If
to
you
I'm
need
open to
Mike,
talking.
you can get Mike.
Yeah, totally. I'm easy, man. I'm totally easy. My phone, I think my well, yeah, my phone number's on my website even. Just
There we
text me if you
go.
want to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's awesome. Thank you so much for sharing all of these great, like your wisdom and your experiences and your story, because so many small business owners, they struggle and they feel alone. And being able, I
Yeah.
think, to listen to other people that have told the story of, yeah, it crashed and burned and this one was really good and this was really bad. But here I am now and life's been great. Like them being able to hear that, it really buoys everyone up. So thank you for sharing that with everyone today. I really
Yeah,
appreciate
no, no. I think you learn the most from the failures, and I think sharing failures are the best thing. It's good for me. It's good for other people, and I think it's what we don't talk about enough, right? Is our failures, right? Like it's just it just it also shows your resilience, right? Like,
it. Hmm.
yeah, I made it through. Like, yeah, it was tough, but I'm sitting here laughing about it today, so it's all good.
Exactly. Yep. Well,
Yeah.
thank you so much. And to our audience, be sure to subscribe so you never miss another episode and check out Mike's website. Thank you so much and have a great day.